The Great Hall of Horizon Prime was the largest structure ever built in space. It floated between three galaxies, a neutral ground where the 12 great species of the universe came to talk, argue, and make decisions that affected trillions of lives. The walls were made of crystal that had been mined from dying stars. The floor was polished metal from a planet that no longer existed. Everything about this place was meant to show power and importance. On this day, the hall was full. Representatives from all 12 species sat in their assigned sections. The tall beings with gray skin and 4 arms occupied the center. They were the oldest species, and they believed this made them the. Next to them sat the creatures that looked like giant insects with sharp mandibles and compound eyes that saw in every direction. There were there too, reptilian warriors covered in green scales, known throughout the galaxy for their strength in battle. And then there were the humans. Admiral Park sat alone in the human section. He was 62 years old, with gray hair cut short and a face that had seen too many difficult days. He wore the black uniform of the United Earth Navy, simple and without decoration. While other species brought dozens of advisors and guards, had come alone. This was not because humans had no one to send. It was a choice. High Commander of the Empire stood at the center of the hall. He was impressive to look at, standing nearly 3 meters tall, his 4 arms folded behind his back. His voice echoed through the chamber as he spoke. For 1,000 years, the Accord of Silence has maintained peace between our species and the humans of Earth, said. For 1,000 years, we have watched them. We have studied them. We have allowed them to exist in their small corner of the galaxy. Listened without expression. His dark eyes did not blink. His hands rested calmly on his knees. But peace, continued, was never meant to last forever. The humans have grown comfortable. They have forgotten their place. They spread to new worlds without permission. They build ships without approval. They act as if they are equal to species that have existed for millions of years. Murmurs of agreement came from the sections. Commander, an officer with battle scars across her face, clicked her mandibles in approval. The general, a massive creature named, slammed his tail against the floor in support. Raised one of his arms to quiet the hall. Today, the Accord of Silence ends. Today, we deliver our demands to humanity. He turned to face directly. The human admiral still had not moved. Earth will surrender all colonial territories beyond the Sol system, announced. Earth will reduce its military to defensive capabilities only. Earth will submit to governance by the Galactic Council with oversight. These terms are not negotiable. The hall fell silent. Every eye, every sensor, every attention was focused on the lone human. Slowly stood from his seat. He was not tall by human standards, and compared to the aliens around him, he looked small, fragile. This was exactly what they expected. And if we refuse? Asked. His voice was calm, almost gentle. Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Then you will face the combined might of the Empire, the Collective, and the Dominion. Our alliance commands 50,000 warships. Your entire species numbers only 12 billion. The mathematics of your destruction would be simple. More sounds of approval came from the alien sections. The other 9 species remained silent, watching carefully. They had not joined the alliance, but they also had not opposed it. They wanted to see what would happen. Nodded slowly, as if considering the threat. Then something strange happened. He laughed. It was not a nervous laugh or a political laugh. It came from deep in his chest, genuine and warm, like he had just heard a wonderful joke. The sound echoed through the crystal hall, and for a moment, no one knew how to react. Commander's compound eyes narrowed. General's claws scraped against the floor. High Commander's smile disappeared. You find this amusing? Asked, his voice now cold. Took a moment to compose himself. He wiped a tear from his eye, still smiling. I apologize, he said. I truly do. It has been a very long time since anyone made me laugh like that. This is not a joke, human growled. This is war. Oh, I understand, said. He stepped forward, moving into the center of the hall where stood. Despite the size difference between them, he showed no fear. You have 50,000 ships. You have millions of soldiers. You have weapons that can destroy planets. I heard everything you said. Then you understand your position. I understand yours, replied. You think you know us. You have studied our history, our wars, our technology. You looked at records from 1,000 years ago and decided that we are weak, that we are soft, that the peace made us forget how to fight. He paused, looking around the hall at all the alien faces watching him. You made a mistake, he said quietly. You should have attacked us 1,000 years ago, back when we were still afraid, back when we still had doubt, back when war was something that scared us. Leaned down, bringing his face close to the human, and now. Met his gaze without flinching. Now we have had 1,000 years to prepare, 1,000 years to build, 1,000 years to become something that you cannot imagine. He smiled, but there was no warmth in it now. You see, Commander, humans do not use peace to rest. We use it to plan. We use it to train. We use it to create weapons that your scientists will not understand even as they die from them. The hall was completely silent. Even the heads stopped clicking their mandibles. Your 50,000 ships are impressive, continued. I will give you that. But you have no idea what waits for you in our system. You have no idea what we have hidden in the dark places between our planets. You have no idea what human beings become when they decide that survival is more important than peace. He turned and began walking toward the exit. Every alien watched him go. Wait, called out. You cannot simply leave. This is a formal declaration of war. There are protocols. There are responses that must be given. Stopped at the door, he looked back over his shoulder. Here is my response, he said. Bring your ships, bring your soldiers, bring everything you have. When you enter our system, we will be waiting. And when it is over, the galaxy will remember this day. Not as the day they declared war on humanity, but as the day they made the worst mistake in the history of their species. He walked out. The door closed behind him with a soft sound that seemed very loud in the silence. For a long moment, no one spoke, then straightened to his full height and addressed the hall. The humans have made their choice, he announced. They have chosen extinction. In 3 standard cycles, our fleet will jump to the Sol system and the human species will cease to exist. This meeting is concluded. But as the aliens began to leave, several of them noticed something strange. The 9 neutral species, the ones who had watched silently, were exchanging looks with each other. Looks of concern, looks of doubt. Because they knew something that they did not. They had seen humans before, not in records or reports but in person. They had traded with them, spoken with them, looked into their eyes. And they had seen something there that made them very, very afraid. The humans were not scared. The humans were not worried. The humans were excited. The command ship dominance was the pride of the fleet. It stretched for 5 kilometers from front to back, covered in weapons and armor that had taken 3 centuries to perfect. Inside its war room, commander of the studied holographic displays that floated in the air before her compound eyes. She had been given one task by High Commander: learn everything about humanity, find their weaknesses, prepare the Alliance for total victory. For 3 days she had not slept. She had watched every piece of human history that they had collected. She had studied their wars, their weapons, their tactics, and now she was ready to give her report. Entered the war room with General close behind. The warrior still seemed angry about the way the human admiral had spoken to them. His tail swung back and forth with barely controlled aggression. What have you found? Asked. Activated the main display. Images appeared showing human ships from long ago. They were small, slow, and primitive. Their weapons were simple projectiles and basic energy beams. Their armor was thin. The last major human conflict was something they called the Solar Wars, explained. It happened approximately 1,000 years ago, just before the Accord of Silence was signed. Their technology at that time was laughable. Their ships used chemical propulsion. Their soldiers wore basic environmental suits that could be pierced by standard claws. Made a sound of satisfaction. Weak creatures, they will break easily. There is more, continued. She showed images of human soldiers from that era. They moved clumsily in their suits. Their formations were simple. Their tactics were predictable. They have a saying on Earth, something about how peace makes men weak. After 1,000 years without war, their military must be even more degraded than what we see here. Nodded slowly, and their population. 12 billion, spread across 17 colony worlds. Their main fleet, according to our intelligence, consists of approximately 3,000 vessels. Most are cargo ships converted for defense. Their actual warships number less than 500. 500 ships against 50,000, said with obvious pleasure. This will not be a war, it will be an execution. But hesitated, her mandibles clicked nervously. There is one thing that concerns me, High Commander. Speak. Their representative, Admiral Park. He showed no fear, none at all. Either humans are more foolish than any species I have encountered, or they know something we do not. Waved one of his 4 arms dismissively. Bravery and stupidity often look the same. The humans are simply too primitive to understand the danger they face. Prepare the fleet. We attack in 2 cycles. Wanted to argue, but she knew better. She had given her report. What happened next was not her responsibility. Far away, on the planet Earth, a very different meeting was taking place. Defense Minister Sora stood at the head of a long table in a room buried deep beneath the surface of Korea. She was 58 years old, with black hair streaked with gray and eyes that missed nothing. Around her sat the most powerful military leaders on Earth. General represented the ground forces. He was a large man with a shaved head and hands that had seen decades of combat training. Captain Lee, the youngest person at the table at 34, commanded the Navy's first strike fleet. There were others too. Admirals and generals from every continent, every branch, every specialty. They had all watched the recording of the Galactic Council meeting. They had seen threats. They had heard response. And they were not afraid. So, Sora said, her voice calm, they have finally made their move. I was beginning to think they would never find the courage. General leaned back in his chair. 50,000 ships, that is their entire combined fleet. The N have committed everything they have to this attack. Good, Captain Lee said. That means when we destroy them, there will be nothing left for us to worry about later. Sora allowed herself a small smile. Let us review our position. General, the ground forces. Activated his own display. Unlike the primitive images had studied, these showed soldiers in advanced powered armor that could survive the vacuum of space. They carried weapons that could punch through starship hulls. Some of them were not entirely human anymore, their bodies enhanced with technology that made them faster, stronger, and harder to kill than any natural creature. 400 million active soldiers, reported. Another 2 billion in reserve that can be activated within 72 hours. All have completed the full neural combat training program. Many have spent decades in simulation, fighting every enemy we could imagine, and many we made up just to be safe. The Navy, Sora asked. Captain Lee stood. His display showed something that would have made Commander's compound eyes explode with shock. Ships, not hundreds, not thousands, hundreds of thousands. The Black Fleet, Lee said with obvious pride. 212,000 warships hidden in shipyards throughout the asteroid belt. Each one is equipped with gravity cannons, void torpedoes, and quantum shields. Our smallest destroyer could defeat 50 cruisers, our largest battleships. He paused, grinning. Well, they will see for themselves. Sora nodded, and the special projects. A woman at the end of the table spoke up. Doctor was the head of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division. She was small and quiet, with glasses that were connected to a computer network that only she could access. "The Colossus is fully operational," said. 30 kilometers long, powered by a captured star fragment, capable of destroying a planet with a single shot. We also have the Ghost program active. Invisible ships that the enemy cannot detect until they are already dead. And the Reaper drones are ready. 10 million of them, each one capable of independent action and carrying enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The room was silent for a moment, as everyone considered the force they commanded. "They think we spent 1,000 years becoming soft," Sora said finally. "They think peace made us weak. They could not be more wrong." "What are our orders?" asked. Sora looked around the table at the faces of her commanders. These were people she trusted with the future of humanity. These were people who had trained their entire lives for a moment that most had believed would never come. "Let them come," she said. "Let them enter our system with all their ships and all their soldiers. Let them believe they are walking into an easy victory. And when they are deep inside our territory, when they have committed everything they have, we will show them what humanity really is." She stood and walked to a window that showed a view of the stars above. "For 1,000 years we waited. For 1,000 years we prepared. For 1,000 years we wondered if we would ever need the weapons we built. Now we have our answer." She turned back to face her commanders. "Make the preparations. When they arrive, they will find not sheep waiting for slaughter, but wolves that have been sharpening their teeth for 10 centuries." General smiled, a rare expression on his usually serious face. "I almost feel sorry for them." "Do not," Sora replied. "They chose this. They declared war on a species that has been fighting since before we could walk upright. They threatened the children of Earth. Pity is not something they will receive from us." In the asteroid belt, lights began to turn on. Engines that had been cold for decades began to warm. Doors that had been sealed for centuries began to open. The Black Fleet was waking up. And across Earth, in every city and town, people looked up at the sky. They had heard the news. They knew what was coming. Parents held their children. Lovers held each other. Old soldiers who had never seen real combat felt something stir in their blood. They were not afraid. They were ready. The wolves were hungry, and dinner was coming to them. The alien fleet jumped into the Sol system on a Tuesday morning. 50,000 ships appeared in the darkness beyond Neptune, their engines glowing like angry stars. High Commander stood on the bridge of the Dominance, looking at the tactical display with satisfaction. Everything was going according to plan. "All ships have arrived successfully," his navigation officer reported. "No casualties from the jump. The fleet is in perfect formation." Nodded. "Begin the advance. Standard conquest formation. I want us at Earth within 6 hours." The massive fleet began to move. 50,000 vessels of war, carrying millions of soldiers from 3 species, all pointed toward a small blue planet that hung in the distance like a jewel in the void. Commander watched from her position on a carrier ship. Her compound eyes scanned every sensor reading, every display, every piece of information her ship could gather. Something felt wrong, but she could not identify what. "Commander," one of her officers said, "we are detecting no resistance. No ships, no stations, no defensive platforms. The human space around Neptune is completely empty." His mandibles clicked nervously. "That makes no sense. Even primitive species defend their borders. Where are their ships?" "Perhaps they have retreated to Earth," the officer suggested. "Perhaps they know they cannot win and have chosen to make a final stand at there." "Perhaps," said, but she did not believe it. The human admiral's laugh still echoed in her memory. That was not the laugh of a creature planning to die. Hours passed. The alien fleet moved deeper into the Sol system. They passed Neptune, then Uranus. They approached Saturn with its beautiful rings. Still nothing. No human ships, no resistance, no signs of life at all. On the Dominance, Even was beginning to feel uneasy. "Where are they?" he muttered. "They must have some defense, some plan." General stood beside him, his reptilian eyes narrowed. "They are hiding, like the cowards they are. When we reach Earth, we will find them cowering in their cities, begging for mercy." Wanted to believe this. He wanted to believe that the humans were simply too weak and scared to fight. But a small voice in his head reminded him of Admiral's words. "You should have attacked us 1,000 years ago." The fleet entered the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. This was a dangerous area, filled with rocks and debris that required careful navigation. The alien ship slowed down, spreading out to avoid collisions. That was when Captain Lee gave the order. "All ships," his voice echoed across the human command frequency, "engage." For one heartbeat, nothing happened. Then the universe exploded. From behind every asteroid, every rock, every piece of debris, human ships appeared. Not hundreds, not thousands. Tens of thousands of vessels emerged from hiding, surrounding the alien fleet on all sides. They were sleek and black, almost invisible against the darkness of space. Their weapons were already powered and aimed. Stared at his tactical display in disbelief. The screen was covered in red dots representing enemy ships. His computer was struggling to count them all. "Impossible," he whispered. "This is impossible. They cannot have this many ships," our intelligence said. He never finished his sentence. The first volley from the human fleet lasted exactly 7 seconds. Gravity cannons fired, creating focused points of intense gravitational force that crushed ships like empty containers. Void torpedoes launched, weapons that created tiny black holes on impact, swallowing matter and energy alike. Quantum beams cut through shields as if they did not exist. 3,000 alien ships died in those 7 seconds, just gone, erased from existence. On her carrier, Commander watched the carnage with horror. Her display was a mess of destruction. Ships she had known, commanders she had served with, all being destroyed faster than she could process. "Return fire," she screamed. "All ships return fire." The aliens tried to fight back. Their weapons, which had seemed so powerful during training exercises, hit human shields and did nothing. The quantum barriers absorbed energy, converted it, and redirected it back at the attackers. Missiles that could destroy space stations exploded harmlessly against armor that should not have existed. "Their technology," gasped. "It is centuries beyond ours, maybe more. How is this possible?" The answer came across all frequencies, broadcast to every ship in both fleets. Admiral Park's voice, calm and measured, as if he were commenting on the weather. "We gave you peace. You chose war. Now learn why the galaxy feared us." The second volley began. Captain Lee stood on the bridge of the UES Vengeance, watching the battle unfold with cold satisfaction. His ship was a destroyer, small compared to the great battleships around him, but fast and deadly. He had trained for this moment since he was 18 years old. 16 years of preparation, and now it was happening. "Target the command ships," he ordered. "Their leadership must fall first." His tactical officer, a woman named Han, nodded and began identifying the largest alien vessels. "I have the Dominance on sensors. It is trying to retreat. Do not let it." The Vengeance accelerated, joined by 50 sister ships. They moved like wolves hunting a wounded animal, cutting off escape routes, herding the massive flagship toward the center of the kill zone. On the Dominance, chaos had replaced order. Officers shouted over each other. Damage reports flooded in faster than anyone could read them. Tried to maintain control, but he could feel his fleet dying around him. "Jump," he ordered. "All ships, emergency jump out of the system." His navigation officer looked at him with terror in his eyes. "We cannot, High Commander. The humans have deployed some kind of interference field. Our jump drives are not responding." Felt something he had not experienced in centuries of command. Fear, Real, primal fear. "This was not supposed to happen," he said quietly. "We had 50,000 ships. We had the greatest fleet ever assembled. How are we losing?" On a small moon orbiting Jupiter, Doctor stood in a command center, monitoring the battle through hundreds of sensors. She was not a soldier, but she had designed many of the weapons that were now destroying the alien fleet. Every explosion, every death, every moment of the battle was being recorded for future study. She opened a channel to all human forces. "Attention all ships, this is the research vessel Discovery. I am broadcasting humanity's history to all alien frequencies. Let them understand what they attacked." Across the battlefield, every alien ship received the same transmission. Images of human history played on their screens. Wars, revolutions, genocides, plagues, disasters. For 10,000 years, humans had been killing each other, surviving impossible odds, rising from destruction again and again. "We are a species forged in fire," his voice explained as the images played. "We have been conquering since we climbed out of caves. Every enemy that has tried to destroy us has become a lesson. Every challenge has made us stronger. You thought we spent 1,000 years in peace. No, we spent 1,000 years in preparation. Peace was just us being polite." The battle lasted another 4 hours, but it was not really a battle after the first 7 seconds. It was a lesson, a demonstration, a message to every species in the galaxy that might ever think of threatening Earth. When it was over, 47,000 alien ships had been destroyed. The remaining 3,000 surrendered, unable to flee, unable to fight, barely able to function. Among the survivors was the Dominance, its hull and broken, drifting without power. Admiral's voice came across the communication channel one final time. "Take a message back to your worlds," he said. "Tell them what you saw here. Tell them what happened when you attacked humanity. And tell them this: we are not finished." The survivors would indeed carry that message. They would speak of weapons they could not understand, tactics they could not counter, and soldiers who did not seem to feel fear. They would describe the Black Fleet, the ghost ships, the gravity cannons. And in their voices, every listener would hear the same emotion: terror. The aliens had expected a war lasting decades. They had prepared supply lines and reinforcement schedules. They had made plans for a long occupation of Earth. Instead, the war came to them in weeks. Lieutenant Shin stood in the drop pod, waiting for the green light. Around her, 49 other soldiers of the 7th Drop Division checked their weapons and armor one final time. They were about to land on 4, a colony world known for its fierce warriors and impenetrable defenses. The defenses were about to be penetrated. 30 seconds to drop, the pilot's voice came through her helmet. "Enemy anti-air is active, but our jammers are holding. You will have a clean landing zone." Looked at her soldiers. Their powered armor made them look like machines rather than people. Each suit cost more than a small city to build. Each soldier inside had spent years training in virtual combat, dying thousands of simulated deaths to learn how to survive real ones. "Remember your training," she said. "Move fast, hit hard, show no mercy. These are the creatures who wanted to enslave our children. Today, we teach them the price of that dream." The green light appeared. The bottom of the pod opened. 50 soldiers fell through the atmosphere of an alien world, leaving trails of fire in the sky. They saw them coming. Anti-aircraft weapons fired streams of energy into the air. Missiles launched toward the falling humans. But the powered armor had shields that deflected the attacks, and the soldiers' neural implants calculated trajectory changes faster than any computer could track. Hit the ground in the middle of a military camp. Her feet crushed the alien soil, and she was moving before the dust settled. Her rifle, connected to her nervous system, fired at targets before her conscious mind even registered them. Soldiers, famous throughout the galaxy for their combat skills, died without understanding what was killing them. "Spread out," she ordered, Clear the compound. The battle for the camp lasted 8 minutes. 300 warriors against 50 human soldiers. When it was over, not a single was left standing. Not a single human had been seriously injured. Stood over the body of what appeared to be the camp commander. This compound eyes stared at nothing. Its mandibles were frozen in an expression that might have been surprise. Base command, this is 7th Division, she reported. Primary target secured, moving to secondary objectives. Confirmed 7th Division. Excellent work, continue operations. Across 4, similar scenes were playing out. Human forces fell from the sky like rain, overwhelming defenses that had never been tested against an enemy like this. They were strong, but human soldiers were stronger. They were fast, but human neural enhancements were faster. They were fierce, but humans had been killing things since before the species had learned to use fire. In space above the colony, the situation was equally one-sided. The home fleet, 30,000 ships strong, had assembled to defend their territory. They outnumbered the human attack force 3-1. For a brief moment, the commanders had felt hope. That hope died with their flagship. Captain Lee commanded the human fleet from the bridge of the Vengeance. He watched the ships try to form defensive positions, try to coordinate their fire, try to do something that might stop the incoming attack. It was almost sad to watch. "Ghost Squadron, begin your run," he ordered. 30 ships that had been invisible to sensors suddenly appeared in the middle of the enemy formation. They had been there for hours, waiting, gathering information. Now they attacked from within, destroying command ships and communication relays before they could react. The fleet fell into chaos. Without coordination, their numerical advantage meant nothing. Human ships moved through them like predators through a flock of prey animals, destroying everything they touched. While they burned, they faced their own destruction. General led the ground assault on the personally. He was too old for this kind of fighting, his advisors had said. He should command from orbit, they had suggested. He had ignored them. "I have been training soldiers my entire life," he had replied. "I deserve to see what they can do." Now he walked through the ruins of a military base, stepping over the bodies of creatures that had been called the greatest warriors in the galaxy. His powered armor was scratched and dented from close combat. Green reptilian blood covered his gauntlets. "General," one of his officers called out, "we have prisoners, officers who wish to surrender." Approached the prisoners. There were about 20 of them, large reptilian warriors who had thrown down their weapons. Their eyes, which had once looked upon humans as inferior creatures, now showed only fear. "You wanted war," said to them. "You wanted to conquer Earth, to kill our people, to take our planet." He leaned closer. "Was it worth it?" The highest-ranking prisoner, a general named who recognized from intelligence reports, lowered his head. "We did not understand," said. "We thought you were weak. We thought the peace had made you soft." "And now?" Looked up at the human general. "Now I understand that the peace was a gift, a kindness we did not deserve. You could have destroyed us centuries ago. Why did you not?" Considered the question. "Because war is ugly," he said finally. "Because killing brings no joy. Because even wolves do not hunt when their bellies are full." He turned away. "Take them to the prisoner camps. Treat them with dignity. They are not our enemies anymore. They are our students." The final lesson was delivered to the Empire. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the UES Colossus as it took position above The flagship was 30 kilometers long, a mountain of metal and weapons that blocked out the stars. Around it, 2,000 other human ships formed a ring around the planet. On the surface, 4 billion watched the sky with terror. Their fleet was gone, destroyed in the Sol system or hunted down in the weeks that followed. Their allies had surrendered. They were alone. High Commander, recovered from his wounds, stood in the capital city and looked up at the human ships. He had never felt so small. "This is Admiral Park of the United Earth Navy. A voice echoed across the planet, broadcast on every frequency. Your military is defeated. Your allies have surrendered. You have no ships, no weapons, no hope of victory. I offer you one chance to end this. Unconditional surrender. Grabbed a communication device. Never, he shouted. The Empire has stood for 10 million years. We will not bow to primitive creatures who should still be living in caves. There was a long pause. Then's voice came again, softer now, almost sad. I was hoping you would choose differently, he said. Very well. The Colossus fired. A beam of light descended from the sky, bright as a sun, focused on a single point. The military command center, a structure that had stood for 50,000 years, simply ceased to exist. The blast was surgical precise. It destroyed only the target, leaving the surrounding city untouched. But the message was clear. Felt the ground shake beneath his feet. He saw the smoke rising from where his command center had stood. He understood, finally, what he was facing. Stop, he said, his voice broken. We surrender completely. The beam stopped. The human ships held their position. Your surrender is accepted, Admiral said. Human forces will be landing shortly to begin the occupation. Any resistance will be met with overwhelming force. The age of dominance is over. A new age begins now. On Earth, Doctor watched the broadcast from her laboratory. She had helped design the Colossus. She had helped create the weapon that had just ended a 10-million-year empire. She should have felt proud. Instead, she felt tired. She began composing a message, a new broadcast to be sent across the galaxy. It contained humanity's entire history, every war, every tragedy, every lesson learned through blood and pain. Let them see what we are, she said to herself. Let them understand why attacking us was always going to end this way, and let them remember so this never has to happen again. The message began transmitting. The galaxy listened. And the galaxy trembled. 6 months after the war began, it ended, not with more destruction, but with silence. A silence that meant something different now than it had before. The Galactic Council chambers on Horizon Prime looked the same as they had on that day when had declared war. The same crystal walls, the same polished metal floor, the same seats arranged in a circle for the 12 great species, but everything had changed. The section was nearly empty. Only a handful of representatives sat there, their heads bowed, their forearms folded in submission. The section was the same. Their compound eyes looked at the floor, unable to meet anyone's gaze. They sat quietly, their tails still for the first time in living memory. And the human section was no longer occupied by one man alone. Admiral Park sat at the center of the room, in the seat that had belonged to the leader of the Galactic Council. Beside him stood General, his armor still showing the scratches from the ground war. Defense Minister Sara was there, dressed in the formal black of the United Earth government. Captain Lee stood nearby, his young face serious and calm, and Doctor sat at a small table, recording everything for history. The 9 species who had remained neutral during the war watched from their seats. They had not fought, but they understood that their role in the galaxy had also changed. The old order was dead. Something new was being born. Admiral looked around the chamber, meeting each pair of eyes, each set of sensors, each form of alien perception. He let the silence stretch until it became uncomfortable. Then he spoke. When you came to our system, he began, his voice filling the chamber, you expected to find farmers, traders, soft creatures who had forgotten how to fight. You believed that 1,000 years of peace had made us weak. He paused, letting the words sink in. You were wrong. High Commander, who sat in chains at the front of the section, flinched at the words. For 1,000 years we built, we prepared, we trained soldiers who fought in simulations so real that some of them forgot which battles were practice and which were memory. We created weapons that your scientists still cannot understand. We constructed a fleet so vast that your entire alliance was destroyed in hours." He stood and walked to the center of the chamber, where had stood when he declared war. "We could conquer you all," said. "Right now, human ships orbit every one of your. Human soldiers stand ready to drop from the sky at my command. We could burn your cities, enslave your populations, take everything you have and everything you have ever been." The alien representatives shifted nervously. Some of them, the ones who had been neutral, began to look frightened. They had done nothing wrong, but they knew how conquerors behaved. They expected the worst. "That is what you would have done to us," continued. "If you had won, you would have shown no mercy. You said so yourself. You spoke of our extinction. You spoke of erasing humanity from existence." Could not speak. The shame was too great. Let another moment of silence pass. Then he smiled, and the smile changed everything. "But we are not you." The aliens looked up, confused. "We are humans. We are the species that has fought more wars than any other in this galaxy. We have killed billions of our own kind. We have destroyed cities, poisoned lands, done terrible things to each other for thousands of years." He walked back to his seat and sat down. "But we have also learned. We have grown. We have become something more than just killers." Defense Minister Sora stepped forward. "The United Earth government has decided on the terms of peace," she announced. "Listen carefully, because these terms will shape the future of the galaxy." She activated a holographic display that showed the map of known space. "The Empire, the Collective, and the Dominion will be dissolved as military powers," she said. "All warships will be surrendered. All weapons production will be monitored. Your worlds will remain your own, and your people will govern themselves, but you will never again threaten another species." The defeated aliens nodded. This was expected. This was what conquerors did. "But that is not all," Sora continued. "We are not taking your worlds. We are not enslaving your people. We are not demanding tribute or resources or anything that would diminish your species." Now the confusion was visible. This was not what conquerors did. "Instead, we offer something different: protection. Any species that was once our enemy may now become our friend. Any world that feared our power may now benefit from it. We will not rule the galaxy." She looked directly at the 9 neutral species. "We will guard it." Captain Lee stepped forward. "From this day forward, the Sol System Defense Fleet will patrol the major trade routes. Pirates, slavers, and aggressors of any kind will be dealt with. Any species that attacks another will face the same response that the Alliance faced. This is not a threat. This is a promise." General spoke next. "We do not want your submission. We want your cooperation. Work with us, and your worlds will be safer than they have ever been. Stand against us, and you will share the fate of those who already made that mistake." The aliens listened to each word. They saw the power before them. They understood that humanity could take anything it wanted, and they understood for the first time that humanity was choosing not to. It was the most frightening thing they had ever witnessed. Admiral rose one final time. "Let me be clear about one thing," he said, and his voice became cold, harder than the crystal walls around them. "This mercy is offered once, only once. The next species that threatens Earth, the next alliance that dreams of conquering humanity, will not receive speeches and terms and chances to surrender. They will receive oblivion." He let the word hang in the air. "We have weapons you have not seen, ships you cannot imagine, soldiers who have trained for wars that have not happened yet. We prepared for 1,000 years because we knew this day might come. And we will prepare for another 1,000 years and another after that, forever if necessary. Because that is what we are. That is what humanity does. We survive. We adapt. We overcome. And we protect what is ours." He walked toward the exit just as he had 6 months ago. But this time, no one called for him to stop. No one demanded protocols or responses. No one said anything at all. At the door, he paused and looked back. "Peace," he said softly. "That is what we want. That is what we have always wanted, but peace requires strength. Peace requires the willingness to fight for it. Peace requires that those who would break it understand the consequences." He smiled again, and there was warmth in it this time. "We did not want this war, but we were ready for it. We will always be ready. Remember that." He walked out. His companions followed. On Earth, celebrations erupted across the planet. People who had never known war suddenly understood what their ancestors had built. Children who had grown up in safety learned of the strength that protected them. Streets filled with music and lights and the sound of joy. In a quiet office in Korea, Dr. Oh began writing. She was a historian, and she understood that this moment would define humanity's future. Every word she wrote would be studied by generations not yet born. She titled her work "The Last War Anyone Started with Humanity." For hours she wrote, documenting everything: the declaration, the battle, the victory, the mercy. She wrote about Admiral and his laugh. She wrote about the Black Fleet emerging from hiding. She wrote about soldiers like Shin and commanders like Lee. She wrote about the fear in alien eyes and the hope in human hearts. When she reached the conclusion, she paused. She looked out her window at the stars, the same stars that now contained human ships protecting the galaxy. Then she wrote her final words. "For 1,000 years they thought our silence was weakness. They believed our peace meant we had forgotten how to fight. They looked at us and saw prey. They were wrong about everything. Our silence was patience. Our peace was preparation. And when they finally forced us to show what we truly were, they learned a lesson that the galaxy will never forget." She set down her pen and read the last line again. "Humans do not start wars, but we always finish them." Outside, the sun rose over Earth. A new day, a new age, a galaxy forever changed by a species that had come from a small blue planet and proven itself against all odds. The humans had won, and they had chosen mercy. The galaxy would remember both.